At 2 a.m., Adrian Brooks, 32 years old, a single father barely holding his life together, got an emergency call from the most expensive tower in the city. A $400 million investor presentation had vanished just hours before the deal of the century. He thought it was another desperate gig to keep milk in his daughter's fridge. But when he walked onto the 47th floor, he met Nora Vale, the woman who would quietly rewrite the rest of his life, and uncovered a conspiracy that could cost him everything he had left, including the little girl waiting for him at home. If you love stories about love, betrayal, and hope found in the darkest night, please hit the like button and comment the name of the city you're watching from so I know how far my story has traveled. The rain had been falling on Portland for 3 days straight, and Adrian Brooks could feel every drop of it in the ache across his shoulders. He drove the old gray Subaru through streets that shimmered like oil, one hand on the wheel, the other pressed absently against his jaw where a headache had settled in hours ago and refused to leave. The phone on the passenger seat buzzed again. He didn't look. He already knew who it was. He'd read the message at the last red light. Emergency. Luxton Tower, 47th floor. Triple rate if you can be here in an hour. The sender was a name he didn't recognize, which usually meant someone had passed his number along in a panic. That was how most of his work came to him these days. A whispered recommendation, a desperate late-night text, a voice on the line trying to sound calm while the world fell apart on the other side. He glanced at the dashboard clock, 1:47 a.m. In the rearview mirror, a tiny pink backpack sat slumped against the back seat, the kind of pink that had been chosen by a 5-year-old who didn't yet understand that pink was supposed to be embarrassing. A stuffed elephant with one missing eye leaned against the backpack like a patient old friend. Adrian's chest tightened at the sight. He'd dropped Emma off at Mrs. Delaney's house on the way over, and the old woman had waved off his apologies with the same soft smile she always gave him. "Go," she'd said. "The rent doesn't pay itself, honey. Emma's asleep already. I'll feed her pancakes in the morning. Don't you worry about a thing." He worried anyway. He always worried. Adrian turned onto Fifth Avenue and the Luxton Tower came into view, a sleek black spire of glass and steel that cut into the storm like a blade. Every floor was lit. The lobby glowed gold through the rain. He pulled into the underground garage, parked in a visitor slot next to a matte silver Porsche that probably cost more than every apartment he'd ever rented, and took a moment to breathe. His reflection in the rearview mirror looked back at him with tired eyes and 2 days of stubble. He ran a hand through his dark hair, tried to flatten the worst of it, and gave up. The jacket he was wearing had a coffee stain on the cuff. His boots were still wet. He looked like exactly what he was. A 32-year-old freelance tech fixer who hadn't slept well in 4 years. He grabbed his backpack from the passenger seat, slung it over one shoulder, and walked toward the elevator. The security guard at the lobby desk was a heavy-set man with a shaved head and a name tag that said Marcus. He looked up when Adrian approached, took in the stained jacket and the wet boots, and did that little involuntary adjustment of his face that Adrian had come to recognize. The "you're not supposed to be here" face. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked, in a tone that implied he'd rather not. "Adrian Brooks. I was called in for an emergency. 47th floor." Marcus typed something, frowned, typed more. "By who?" "A woman named..." Adrian checked his phone. "Nora Vale." The frown deepened. Then something shifted in Marcus's eyes, a flicker of recognition that wasn't quite respect but wasn't quite dismissal either. He reached under the desk and produced a visitor badge. "She's waiting for you." Adrian clipped the badge to his jacket and walked to the elevator. The doors slid open without a sound. He stepped inside, hit 47, and watched the city disappear below him. The elevator lifted fast enough to make his ears pop. He leaned against the mirrored wall, closed his eyes for a moment, and thought about Emma. She'd be curled up under that purple comforter at Mrs. Delaney's, the elephant tucked under her chin. She'd be dreaming about whatever 5-year-olds dreamed about. Dinosaurs, her kindergarten class. The woman she still sometimes asked about at bedtime, in that careful, hopeful voice that tore him in half every time. "Daddy, do you think Mommy can see me when I lose a tooth?" He opened his eyes. The elevator dinged. The doors parted. Nora Vale was standing in the middle of the hallway. She was in her mid-20s, maybe 26, wearing a cream-colored blouse that had been expensive before the night destroyed it. One sleeve was pushed up to her elbow. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a knot that had started neat and ended desperate. She was holding a coffee cup in one hand and a tablet in the other, and the moment she saw him, her whole posture changed, like someone watching the cavalry come over a hill. "Oh, thank God," she said. "I mean, sorry. Hi, Adrian? That's me. Nora Vale." She juggled the tablet under her arm and stuck out her hand. Her grip was firmer than he expected. "I'm so sorry about the hour. I know it's insane. Everyone who actually works in IT here is apparently at a conference in Austin, and our emergency vendor said they could send someone at 9 a.m. 9 a.m., our pitch is at 8. How long has it been missing? 4 hours. And you called at 10. I called every tech person in the city starting at 10. You're the seventh one who answered. You're also the only one who didn't try to charge me double his double rate." Adrian almost smiled. "I only charge double. It's practically a discount at this point. Come on." She turned and walked fast, and he followed. The hallway was all dark wood and track lighting, the kind of place where everything whispered money. Floor-to-ceiling windows on the left looked out over the storm. He could see lightning stitching the clouds, far away, and his reflection following him in the glass. "So who am I walking into?" Adrian asked. 6 exhausted executives, 1 panicking legal counsel, and our CEO, Gideon Hart, who hasn't slept in about 30 hours and isn't handling it well. She paused at a glass door, keyed in a code, and pushed it open with her hip. "I'd apologize in advance, but I think you'll figure it out fast." The conference room was a disaster. Laptops were open on every available surface. Paper printouts, actual paper, were scattered across the long table like leaves after a storm. A whiteboard on the far wall was covered in frantic scribbles, most of them crossed out. 3 men in rumpled dress shirts stood around a monitor, arguing in low, fast voices. A woman with a legal pad sat on the floor with her back against the wall, eyes closed, lips moving like she was praying. And at the head of the table stood a man Adrian knew on sight, Gideon Hart. He'd seen the face on the cover of Wired 3 months ago. Mid-40s, broad-shouldered, silver at the temples in a way that looked engineered. His blazer was off, sleeves rolled up, tie loose around his neck. He was staring down at a laptop with the kind of furious stillness that Adrian had learned over the years to be careful around. Gideon's eyes came up. "This is your guy?" "This is Adrian Brooks," Nora said, and there was something in her voice, a small, deliberate firmness, that Adrian caught even through his exhaustion. "He's one of the best in the city." Gideon looked him up and down, took in the stain on the jacket, the wet boots, the tired eyes. A muscle worked in his jaw. "He's one of the best?" "He's the one who's here," Nora said evenly. "At 2 a.m, when nobody else came." The room went quiet. Adrian met Gideon's gaze. He'd dealt with men like this before. He'd fixed servers for hedge fund managers who wouldn't say his name and talked over him to their assistants. He'd pulled data from crashed drives for a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills who tried to pay him in Botox. You learned to stand still and not blink. You learned that the job was the job. And once they needed you enough, the attitude evaporated. "What's gone?" Adrian asked. Gideon didn't answer. He looked at Nora. "The pitch deck," Nora said. "The full investor package. Financial projections, product roadmap, the live demo environment. The whole presentation for the Meridian round. We backed it up to the server yesterday afternoon at 4. At 10 p.m., our lead presenter went to rehearse and nothing. The files are gone. Not corrupted. Gone. And the backups from the CloudSync show, well, that's what we need you to look at, because they show something weird." Adrian set his backpack on the one clear corner of the table. He unzipped it and pulled out his laptop, a battered black ThinkPad with stickers half peeled off the lid, and a small leather case of drives and cables. He didn't hurry. Hurry was what everyone else in the room was already doing, and it wasn't working for them. "Can I see the workstation it was last accessed from?" "This way," Nora said. He followed her to a smaller office just off the conference room. There was a clean, modern desk with a 27-inch monitor and an ergonomic chair. Everything neat, everything in order. A framed photograph on the desk showed a thin man with glasses and a nervous smile standing next to a sailboat. "This is Martin's desk," Nora said. "He's the presenter. He's at home right now. Gideon sent him there about an hour ago." "Is Martin okay?" "Martin is having a panic attack the size of Oregon." "Poor guy." "Yeah." Nora set her coffee cup down on the edge of the desk and finally looked at Adrian properly. Her eyes were gray-green, and in the soft light from the monitor, she looked younger than she'd seemed in the hallway. Younger and tireder. "I'm sorry about Gideon. He gets ugly when he's scared." "He's scared?" "He's leveraged himself to his ankles on this round. If it doesn't close, a lot of people lose a lot of money, including him." Adrian sat down in Martin's chair. He opened his laptop, connected it to the desktop with a cable from his leather case, and started typing. For a moment, he forgot Nora was there. This was the part of the job he liked, the part where the noise of the world fell away, and there was only the problem. The logs, the timestamps, the quiet, patient language of machines telling the truth about what had happened to them. "How long will it take you to know if it's recoverable?" Nora asked. "Depends what's been done to it. Give me 20 minutes. I'll get you coffee." "I'm good." "You have coffee already?" "No, I just don't drink other people's coffee." "Long story." She paused in the doorway, and he felt her looking at him. He kept his eyes on the screen. "Okay," she said, and left. For the next 20 minutes, Adrian worked. The file structure on the desktop was clean. Too clean, actually. Most users left a trail of chaos. Desktop screenshots, half-downloaded PDFs, old meeting notes. Martin's desktop had 4 folders, all labeled neatly, and a recycle bin that had been emptied within the last 18 hours. That was the first thing that bothered him. The second thing was the Cloud Sync log. Adrian pulled it up and started reading. At 4:02 p.m. the previous day, the full investor package had been uploaded to the company's private server. At 9:47 p.m., someone had accessed the server from an internal IP and pulled the files down to a local machine. At 9:52 p.m., the same IP had uploaded a 0-byte version of each file back to the server, overwriting the originals. At 9:58 p.m., the local copies had been permanently deleted. The whole thing had taken 16 minutes. Adrian leaned back in the chair. His headache pulsed behind his eyes. This wasn't a crash. This wasn't a sync error. This was a person. He heard a soft knock and looked up. Nora was in the doorway again, holding 2 mugs. She held one out to him. "I made it myself in the break room. Brand new pot. My own hands. I swear on my sister's cat." He took it. The coffee was strong and bitter, and the mug was warm through his fingers, and for a second he was ambushed by how nice it was. He hadn't been handed a cup of coffee by another adult in a long time. "Thanks." So, he said. "You were right. It's not an accident." Her face didn't change exactly, but something in her shoulders shifted. A small, grim settling, like someone who had suspected a bad thing and just had it confirmed. "Can you prove it?" "I can show you the timestamps. I can show you that the files were pulled, overwritten, and deleted by someone using an internal IP address. I can't yet tell you which machine, but I can narrow it to a floor." "How fast?" "An hour, maybe 2. "And can you get the presentation back?" "I don't know yet." She exhaled. Then she pulled up a chair from the corner, sat down beside him, and set her own coffee on the desk. "Walk me through it." He looked at her. Most people, when he started talking about timestamps and IPs, went glassy-eyed and asked when it would be fixed. Nora was looking at him like she genuinely wanted to understand. "You sure?" he said. "I work in strategy. I like patterns. I'll keep up." And so, for the next half hour, Adrian walked her through what he was seeing. The sync log, the deletion timeline, the overwritten files, the specific, careful way that whoever had done this had known exactly what to hit and in what order. Nora asked good questions. She had a way of tilting her head when she was thinking, and a habit of tapping her index finger twice against her mouth before she spoke. "So it wasn't a kid," she said finally. "It wasn't some script kiddie who broke in. No. Whoever did this knew your system. They had credentials. They knew where the backups were. They knew the investor package specifically because they didn't touch anything else. This was surgical. Someone inside the company. Someone inside the company." Nora looked down at her coffee. She was quiet for a long time. "I was afraid of that," she said. "Why?" "Because I've been here for 2 years and I've watched 3 good projects die under suspicious circumstances." She glanced at him. "But every time I've tried to bring it up to Gideon, he waves it off. Says I'm paranoid, Says competitors play hardball. You think it's competitors? I think if it was competitors, they wouldn't have the credentials. Adrian nodded. That tracks. She took a breath, let it out. Okay, what do you need from me? I need to know who had server access between 9 and 10 p.m. last night, physically in the building, badged in. I can get you the logs. Do it quietly. She met his eyes. Yeah, quietly. Got it. She stood up, smoothed her blouse, and walked out. Adrian watched her go for half a second longer than was strictly professional, and then he looked back at his laptop, annoyed at himself. She was a client. He had a daughter at home. He had a job to do. He worked. By 3:30 a.m., he had a list. Nora came back with the badge records, and together they cross-referenced them with the IP access logs. 11 people had badged into the building between 9 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. the previous night. Most were on floors below 47. 3 had been on 47. Of those 3, one was a janitor whose card had been used in the west stairwell and a single bathroom on 36. One was an intern named Priya who had badged out at 9:41 before the deletion started. The third was a name Adrian didn't recognize. Calvin Reed, he said, Chief Technology Officer. Nora went still. That can't be right. Logs don't lie. Calvin is the one who built the backup system. He was the one who advised us on our data security protocols last quarter. He's been with Gideon since the beginning. Then he had motive to know exactly how to do this. Adrian. What? She shook her head slowly. Gideon is going to lose his mind. Let him. You don't understand. Calvin is his best friend, was his college roommate, is godfather to his son. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Do the logs lie? No. Then it doesn't matter who he is. Nora rubbed her forehead. The fluorescent light caught the edge of her jaw, and Adrian noticed, against his will, the small scar on her right cheekbone, faint as a pencil line. Okay, she said. Okay, let me think. Take your time. We can't just walk into the conference room and accuse him, not without the presentation in our hands, because right now, without the deliverable, all we have is an accusation and a missing deck. If Gideon has to choose between believing you, a guy he just met, and Calvin, the man who stood at his wedding, you and I both know how that ends. So we get the deck back first. Can you? I can try. How? Adrian turned the laptop toward her. The files weren't overwritten with encryption. They were overwritten with 0-byte copies, which is the lazy way to delete something. It's the way you do it when you're in a hurry or when you're confident you won't need to cover your tracks because you're sure nobody will look. The actual data, the original bits, they might still be on the drive, fragmented, buried, but there. And you can pull them out? Forensic recovery. I've done it before. Not at this scale, but the principle's the same. How long? He looked at the clock. If everything goes right, 4 hours. The pitch is at 8. I know. She exhaled. Okay? Nora. Yeah? This is going to get ugly. Yeah. You okay? She looked at him then. A real look. Not a professional one. The kind of look that passes between two people in a quiet room at 4 a.m. when neither of them has slept and both of them are scared of different things. I'm okay, she said. He believed her mostly. They worked. Adrian set up the recovery on Martin's machine, then moved to a second workstation and set up a parallel run. The process was slow. Disk forensics was always slow. And there was nothing to do but wait and check progress in 15-minute increments. So they talked. At first about the case, then, slowly, about other things. He learned that Nora had grown up in a small town in Idaho. Her father had run a hardware store. Her mother had been a high school English teacher until a stroke took her at 51. She had one older sister who lived in Denver and worked for a nonprofit that helped domestic violence survivors find housing. Nora herself had gone to Stanford on scholarship, studied economics and communications, and taken this job because the salary was insane, and she was still paying off her sister's law school loans from 3 years ago when her sister's husband had emptied their joint account and disappeared. That's a lot of weight to carry, Adrian said. Family. Yeah. What about you? He hesitated. He wasn't used to talking about himself. Most clients didn't ask. Most clients wouldn't have noticed if he'd turned invisible. I have a daughter. How old? 5. Emma. Her name's Emma. 5 is a great age. 5 is exhausting. She laughed. It was a small, quick laugh, surprised out of her. I bet. Her mom died when she was 18 months old. Car accident. He said it flat, because that was the only way he'd learned to say it. So it's been the two of us for a while. Nora's face did something careful. Not pity. Adrian hated pity, and he braced for it out of habit. But something quieter. An acknowledgement. I'm sorry, Adrian. Thanks. Is she with a sitter tonight? My neighbor. She's 82. She watches Emma when I have to take a late job. Emma calls her Grandma D, even though we're not related. That sounds nice. It's a blessing. The word slipped out before he could catch it, and for a second he thought about taking it back. He didn't think of himself as someone who used that word, but Nora just nodded, like she understood what he'd meant, which was simply, I got lucky. They kept working. At 4:45 a.m., Gideon appeared in the doorway. His tie was gone. His sleeves were rolled higher. His eyes were red. Update. Recovery's at 40%, Adrian said. 40% of what? 40% of the way through the drive scan. Once it hits 100, we start reassembling the file structure. I should have something by 7. Something. Not guaranteed, but likely. Gideon nodded. He didn't leave. He stood in the doorway and looked at Adrian for a long moment. You're the guy who used to work at Kovacheck Systems. Adrian looked up. How did you... I recognized the name once I had a minute to think. You were on the team that pulled the Hartley merger data out of the fire 3 years ago. I remember. That was good work. Thank you. Why'd you leave? Adrian glanced at Nora, then back at Gideon. He didn't feel like explaining himself at 5 in the morning, but he also didn't feel like lying. My wife died. I had a baby. I needed flexible hours. Kovacheck doesn't do flexible. Gideon's face didn't change, but something in his posture did. A tiny softening. I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you. You get me my deck back, Adrian Brooks, and I'll owe you something more than money. Just the money is fine. Gideon almost smiled. Right answer. He turned and walked away, and Nora, who had been silent through all of it, let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. He likes you. He doesn't like anyone. He likes competence, which for him is the same thing. I'll take it. They worked. By 5:30, the scan was at 70%, and the first rough file signatures were showing up in the recovery buffer. Adrian started reassembling. He moved between his laptop and Martin's machine with practiced patience, eyes flicking between 6 terminal windows at once. Nora sat on the edge of the desk now, legs tucked under her, and every time he glanced up, she was watching the screens with the careful intensity of someone learning a new language. At one point, she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "Why did you say you don't drink other people's coffee? What's the story?" He huffed a laugh. "That's what you want to know right now?" "It's going to drive me insane if I don't ask." He reached for his mug, hers, technically, the one she had made for him, and took a sip. When I was 19, I had a boss at an IT help desk in Spokane who put ranch dressing in my coffee as a prank. I didn't notice until the 3rd sip. I haven't accepted coffee from a stranger since. Nora laughed. A full one this time, loud enough to bounce off the office walls. Ranch dressing? Ranch. Dressing. That's diabolical. I think about it more often than I should. And yet you're drinking mine. I saw you pour it. Good defense. I'm a cautious man. She looked at him and something passed across her face. Amused, surprised, a little warm. And Adrian looked back down at the screen before he could figure out what it was, because he had a job to do and a daughter at home, and there was no room in his life for whatever that look was. The recovery finished at 6:51 a.m. For a long moment, Adrian and Nora both just stared at the screen. The folder structure had rebuilt itself. Every file, every subfolder, the live demo environment, the projections, the roadmap, even the 2 video clips Martin had planned to show. "Oh my God," Nora whispered. "Yeah. You did it." "I had a good feeling." She laughed, and it was shaky this time, relief leaking out of her. You had a good feeling. Professional confidence. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you. We're not done yet. I know, but thank you. He transferred the files to the company server, triple-checked them, and ran a quick verification. Everything was clean. Everything was there. Then he sat back and looked at her. Now we deal with Calvin. Her face settled. Now we deal with Calvin. How do you want to play it? I think we need to tell Gideon. Okay, but we need to be careful. If Calvin realizes he's been made, he could do more damage before the pitch. He has access to everything. Then we need to lock him out of the system first, quietly. And then we walk into that conference room together and we lay the logs on the table. You'll stay? I'll stay. Nora nodded. She stood up, then hesitated. Adrian. Yeah? I don't know how to thank you for this. Actually, I don't know what I would have done if… Don't. Don't what? Don't thank me yet. The pitch isn't over. The job isn't over. Let's get through this first. She nodded slowly. Okay, you're right. She walked to the door, then turned back. Hey. Yeah? Your daughter, Emma. Yeah? She's lucky to have you. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. He had spent the last 4 years feeling like the opposite was true, that Emma had drawn the short straw, that she deserved a better father, a better life, a mother who was still alive and not a grieving, half-broken man who worked nights and slept 3 hours at a time and sometimes cried in the car on the way home from parent-teacher conferences. He had never, not once, thought of himself as something Emma was lucky to have. The word sat in his chest like a warm stone. Thank you, he said. Nora smiled, just a small one, the edges of it tired, and left. Adrian sat alone in Martin's office for a minute. He looked at his hands. They were shaking, very faintly, from too much coffee and not enough sleep. He closed his laptop. He stood up. He walked to the conference room. Gideon was at the window, looking out at the rain-smeared city. The sun was starting to come up, gray and reluctant, behind the clouds. The other executives were slumped in their chairs. The woman with the legal pad was asleep, sitting up. Nora was already at the head of the table. When Adrian walked in, she turned and her eyes met his, and he felt something he had not felt in a long time. The simple, unfamiliar steadiness of having someone in the room who was on his side. Gideon, she said, we have the presentation back. Heads came up around the table. The woman with the legal pad startled awake. Gideon turned from the window. Thank God, he said. And we know who took it. The room went quiet. Gideon's face changed slowly. What? Adrian traced it. The server logs are clear. Between 9:47 and 10:03 last night, someone on the 47th floor accessed the investor package, pulled it down, uploaded 0-byte replacements, and deleted the originals. One person. Internal IP badge records cross-reference. Who? She looked at him, really looked at him. Her voice was steady, but Adrian could see the pulse hammering in her throat. Calvin? Silence. It stretched. It thinned. It broke. Get out of my conference room, Gideon said. Gideon, get out. I know how it sounds. You have no idea how it sounds, Nora. You have no idea. Calvin has been with me for 22 years. He held my son the day he was born. The logs don't lie, Adrian said quietly. Gideon's head snapped around. You don't speak. The logs don't lie, Adrian said again, the same way. I can show you the timestamps. I can show you the IP. I can show you the badge records. I don't know your friend, Mr. Hart, and I have no interest in being wrong. If you want to look at what I'm looking at, I'll walk you through every line. Gideon stared at him. A long moment passed, and then, very slowly, Gideon said, Show me. Adrian opened his laptop on the conference table. Nora moved to stand beside him, close enough that her shoulder was almost touching his. He started walking Gideon through the evidence. Outside, the rain kept falling. Somewhere on the east side of the city, in a small apartment with a plastic solar system mobile hanging over a kid-sized bed, Emma Brooks was waking up to the smell of Mrs. Delaney's pancakes. She would be told that Daddy had worked very hard last night and would come to pick her up after breakfast. She would nod solemnly and ask if she could save him a pancake. Mrs. Delaney would say yes, And on the 47th floor of the Luxton Tower, Adrian Brooks, 32 years old, a widower, a freelance tech fixer who had walked in wet and stained and alone, was laying out line by line a betrayal that was about to break a company open. Gideon read in silence. Nora watched him read. And when Gideon finally lifted his head, the look on his face was not disbelief anymore. It was something older, something quieter, something that looked, Adrian thought, like the first second of grief. "Call security," Gideon said. His voice had gone flat. "Tell them nobody goes in or out of this floor, and tell them to be at Calvin's office in 5 minutes. I'll meet them there." "Gideon." "Do it, Nora." She moved to the phone. Gideon looked at Adrian. His eyes were wet, but his face was stone. "What do I owe you?" "We'll figure it out after the pitch." "No, now. A number." "After the pitch, Mr. Hart?" Gideon held his gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded, once. "Stay," he said. "Until this is done. Stay." And Adrian, who had intended to get paid, drive home, pick up his daughter, and sleep for 6 hours, heard himself say, "Okay." He looked across the room at Nora on the phone. She was speaking quietly, urgently, her free hand pressed flat against the conference table. The morning light was coming in stronger now, slanting through the rain on the windows, and it caught the edge of her hair and turned it the color of honey. She glanced up, met his eyes. And Adrian Brooks, who had not looked at another human being and felt the bottom of his stomach move in almost 4 years, looked quickly away. He sat down at the conference table. He opened his laptop, and he waited for what came next. Outside, the storm was starting to break. Security arrived in 4 minutes. Adrian watched them come off the elevator through the glass wall of the conference room. 2 men in dark suits, walking fast but not running, the way people walked when they'd been trained not to attract attention. Gideon met them at the elevator bank. He spoke to them quietly, his back to the room, one hand pressed flat against the wall like he needed it to hold him up. Nora was still on the phone. She'd moved to the far corner of the conference room, her voice low, one finger pressed into her ear to block out the rising hum of the office coming awake around them. Adrian could hear fragments. Lock his credentials. All of them. Yes. Including the backup admin. No, don't call him. I said don't call him. She hung up. She looked at Adrian. "It's done," she said. "He's locked out. He'll know as soon as he tries to log in. He's about to have bigger problems than his login." The 2 men in suits were walking back toward the conference room now, Gideon between them. He didn't come inside. He stopped at the doorway, his face carefully composed in a way that Adrian recognized. The face of a man who had built a wall inside himself in the last 3 minutes and was going to live behind it for a while. "Nora, with me." "Gideon, I don't think—" "You're coming." She went. Adrian stayed. He wasn't invited and didn't want to be. He sat at the conference table and looked at his hands and thought about what he was doing here, in a building he'd never heard of 4 hours ago, watching rich people break themselves open at sunrise. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A text from Mrs. Delaney. "Emma's up, asked if she could save you a pancake. I told her yes. She wants to know when you're coming home." Adrian typed back with one thumb. "Tell her soon. Tell her Daddy loves her." The reply came immediately. "Already told her." "Every hour, honey." He put the phone face down on the table. The woman with the legal pad was awake now, sitting upright, her hair mashed flat on one side. She caught Adrian's eye and gave him a small, apologetic smile, as if embarrassed that he'd seen her sleep. "I'm Lenora," she said. "Legal counsel. I don't usually look like this." "Adrian, I know." Nora talks fast when she's scared. Lenora pushed herself upright, stretched, winced. "You really found it?" "Really found it. All of it?" "All of it." She exhaled, long and slow. "Thank Christ, sorry. Thank you. It's fine." "No, it's not fine. Do you know what this company is worth if the Meridian round closes?" "I have an idea." $2 billion. $2 billion. She laughed, but the laugh wasn't happy. It was the tired, disbelieving laugh of someone who had spent too many hours being responsible for something she couldn't control. And we nearly lost it because one man got greedy, or scared, or whatever Calvin was. "Did you know him?" 15 years. Our kids went to school together. Adrian didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Lenora stared at her legal pad as if it had betrayed her, then slowly picked it up and started writing again, her pen moving in small, furious strokes. Down the hallway, a door slammed. Then another. Then, faintly, distantly, a voice, raised, muffled by glass and carpet and distance, but unmistakably furious. Adrian couldn't make out the words. He didn't want to. He kept his eyes on the rain-smeared window and listened to the sounds of a friendship ending. It took 12 minutes. When Nora came back to the conference room, her face was pale. Her mouth was pressed into a line that Adrian would later learn she only made when she was trying very hard not to cry. She walked straight to the coffee station, poured herself a fresh cup, drank half of it standing up, and then poured another. "He denied everything," she said, without turning around. "I figured. He said the logs were fabricated. He said he'd been framed. He said Gideon should look at Martin, at Priya, at me. At you? He said I'd been wanting his job for a year." She laughed, and it was a ragged little sound. "Which, okay, fine, maybe I have, but I didn't steal his pitch deck to get it. What did Gideon do?" Gideon asked him, point blank, if he'd been on the 47th floor between 9:47 and 10:03 last night. And Calvin said no. And Gideon pulled up the badge record on his phone and showed him his own card swipe at 9:44. And Calvin just froze. He just stood there, didn't say anything. And then Gideon told him he had 15 minutes to clear his office. She finally turned. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. "Security's escorting him out now. How are you?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. She blinked, looked at him, really looked at him, the way she had in Martin's office at 4 in the morning. "I don't know," she said. "Ask me in an hour." "Okay." "What about you? You've been up all night." "I'm fine." Liar. Client-facing fine. She smiled, barely, and it hurt to watch because he could see the effort it took her. Gideon came back into the conference room at 7 minutes past 7. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 20 minutes. His shirt was damp with sweat at the collar. He walked to the head of the table, put both hands on the back of the chair, and stood there for a moment with his eyes closed. "All right," he said. "We have 43 minutes. "Gideon," Lenora said, "take 5, just 5. "I can't take 5, Lenora." "You can't go in front of Meridian looking like this either." He opened his eyes and looked at her, and for a second Adrian saw something in his face that was almost human. A flash of exhaustion, a flash of grief, gone again before anyone could react to it. Then the wall came back up. "Adrian." "Yeah." "I need you to stay through the pitch. I don't think—" "Not in the room. I need you on standby. If anything happens in that room in the next 90 minutes, anything, any glitch, any anomaly, anything, I need someone I trust who can fix it. You barely know me. You're the only person in this building right now who I know isn't Calvin." He held Adrian's gaze. "I'll pay you for the whole day, triple rate. Just stay." Adrian thought about Emma, about the pancake, about Mrs. Delaney standing in her kitchen in her old blue housecoat, flipping pancakes, and making up reasons for his absence. "I need to call my daughter first." "Go. Take whatever time you need." Adrian stepped out into the hall. He found a quiet alcove by a window and called home. Mrs. Delaney picked up on the second ring. "How's she doing?" "She's good, honey. She's drawing." "What's she drawing?" "Says it's you, but you're a robot. She says you fix computers, so you must be part robot." He laughed, soft and surprised. "Can I talk to her?" A rustle, a small, familiar voice. "Daddy?" "Hi, baby." "Daddy, are you coming home?" "Not for a few more hours, honey. Daddy has to stay at work a little longer." "Oh." A pause. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." "How are the pancakes?" "Grandma D put chocolate chips." "Lucky girl. I saved you one." "Did you?" "Yeah, it's on a plate. I put plastic on it." "You put plastic on it, like plastic wrap?" "Yeah." "You're a genius." "I know." He laughed again. He could feel his throat closing a little. "Hey, Em. Yeah? I love you so much. I love you so much. And also to the moon." "And also to the moon." "Daddy? Yeah? Don't work too hard." "I won't, baby." He stood at the window after she hung up and watched the rain clear, patch by patch, from the city below. A thin stripe of gold was opening between the clouds over the river. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass and breathed for a minute. When he turned around, Nora was there. She hadn't meant to catch him like that. He could see. She had a folder in one hand and a fresh coffee in the other, and she was clearly walking to somewhere else, but she had slowed when she saw him, and now she was standing 6 feet away, her face unreadable. "Your daughter?" she said. "Yeah." "Is she okay?" "She saved me a pancake." Nora's mouth moved. Not quite a smile. "That's a good daughter." "She's a good daughter." They stood there for a second that went on too long. Then Nora said, "Meridian's here. They're setting up in the boardroom. Gideon wants you on the 39th floor, in the dev office. If anything goes wrong, he'll send for you." "Okay." "Lenora's going to show you the way." "Okay." "Adrian." "Yeah?" "Eat something. You look awful." He huffed a small laugh. "Noted." She walked away. The dev office on 39 was empty at that hour. A long open room with standing desks and monitors, and a fridge stocked with energy drinks. Lenora pointed him to a couch in the corner and promised to come get him when the pitch ended. She didn't promise it would end well. Nobody was making that promise yet. Adrian sat on the couch. He found a granola bar in his backpack. He ate it slowly. The sun came in through the window. Somewhere on the 47th floor, 43 minutes after Gideon had started his clock, the pitch for a $2 billion round was beginning. Adrian could not hear it. He could not see it. He could only sit on a couch in an empty office and wait to be needed. He fell asleep somewhere around 8:30. He didn't mean to. He hadn't slept in 23 hours, and the couch was deep, and the sun was warm, and his body simply took the decision out of his hands. He woke up to the sound of footsteps. He opened his eyes. Nora was standing over him. "Hey," she said, quiet. "How long was I out?" "About 40 minutes. Don't worry, nothing broke." He sat up, wiped his mouth, tried to look like someone who hadn't just been drooling on a stranger's couch. "How'd it go?" "They asked for an exclusive 48-hour window to close." Which means we did it. You did it. We did it, Adrian. The pitch was flawless because the deck was flawless because you got the deck back. Gideon knows it. Meridian doesn't need to know it, but Gideon knows. She sat down on the couch beside him. Not too close, but not far either. The couch was narrow enough that he could feel the warmth coming off her arm. "Gideon wants to see you," she said. "He's writing you a check." "Okay." "He asked me what he owed you. I told him $6,500. The hourly plus triple rate plus a bonus because you saved the company. I hope that's okay." That's more than generous. It's not enough. It's enough." "Adrian." "Yeah?" "Take the money." He laughed, a little. "Yes, ma'am." They sat there on the couch in the quiet, empty office, and for a minute neither of them said anything. Adrian could feel his heart slowing down for the first time in hours. Outside the window, the sun had climbed fully above the river and the city looked washed clean, the way cities look after a storm. "Can I ask you something?" Nora said. "Yeah. When you called your daughter, I saw you at the window. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I was just passing. But your face. My face. You looked like someone else, like a whole different person. Not the tired guy in the conference room, someone younger, someone, I don't know, someone alive." Adrian didn't answer for a moment. He looked down at his hands. "She's the only person I'm honest around," he said finally. "The only person I don't have to be a version of myself for. Everyone else, clients, my landlord, my neighbors, my in-laws, I'm always the widower. I'm the guy they feel sorry for, or the guy they don't know what to say to, or the guy they want to fix. Emma just wants me to come home and eat a pancake." That sounds peaceful. It is. It's the best thing in my life. She's the best thing in my life. Nora was quiet. Then she said, "What was her name?" "Your wife." He turned his head and looked at her. He hadn't expected the question. Most people didn't ask. Most people thought it was rude to bring it up, or were afraid they'd make him cry, which was a polite kind of cowardice he'd gotten used to. "Her name was Hannah," he said. "Hannah. She was a social worker, foster care placement. She worked with kids nobody else wanted." He swallowed. "She was the best person I've ever known. Not like, not in the eulogy way, in the actual way. She was the one in the room who always noticed the person nobody was looking at. I would have liked her. She would have liked you. The words came out before he could think about them, and once they were out, he couldn't take them back, and he didn't want to. He meant them. Hannah would have liked Nora. Hannah would have liked the way Nora tilted her head when she was listening. Hannah would have liked the way Nora had stood in the hallway at 2 a.m. and defended a stranger in a stained jacket to the scariest man in the building. Nora's eyes went a little shiny. She looked away quickly and blinked. "Well," she said, "that's a hell of a compliment from a man I've known for 7 hours. Sorry. Don't apologize. Don't ever apologize for saying something real." He nodded. They sat. Eventually, Nora said, "Come on, let's get you paid and get you home to your pancake." Gideon was in his office on 47 when they came up. He looked better than he had 2 hours ago, but not by much. He was still in yesterday's shirt. His tie was back on, but crookedly. He stood up when Adrian walked in, came around the desk, and did something Adrian had not expected. He put both hands on Adrian's shoulders and looked him in the face. "I'm not going to forget this." "Okay, I don't say that lightly. I'm not a sentimental man, and I don't hand out favors, and I don't pretend to have friends I don't have. But I'm telling you, Adrian Brooks, whatever you need from me, whenever you need it, you have it. A job, a reference, a hospital bill, a phone call at 4 a.m. I owe you, and I intend to pay it." "Just the check is fine, Mr. Hart." Gideon almost smiled. He walked back around the desk and handed Adrian an envelope. The check inside was for $8,000. "This isn't what we discussed." "No, it isn't. Don't argue." Don't argue, Adrian." Adrian closed the envelope and put it in his jacket pocket. His hand was shaking a little. $8,000 was 3 months of rent. $8,000 was Emma's kindergarten tuition, with enough left over to fix the brakes on the Subaru. $8,000 was a break he hadn't seen coming and couldn't, right now, allow himself to feel about. Because if he let himself feel it, he was going to cry in front of a man who had fired his best friend an hour ago, and nobody needed that. "Thank you," he said. His voice was steady. He was proud of that. "Thank you." Adrian nodded. "And Adrian, yeah? There's going to be fallout from this. Calvin is going to make noise. He's going to try to discredit what happened last night. He'll hire lawyers. He'll call reporters. He'll come at you and Nora both because we're the 2 names he knows. I'm telling you this now so you're not surprised. Okay, if he comes at you, you call me. You don't talk to him. You don't talk to reporters. You call me. Understood?" "Understood. Go home. Sleep. Eat your pancake." Adrian looked at him. "How'd you know about the pancake?" "I have daughters too, Adrian. Now get out of my office." He left. Nora walked him to the elevator. They didn't speak. There was nothing to say, or there was too much to say, and neither of them had the energy for more than nothing. At the elevator, she put a hand on his arm, briefly, just her fingers, just for a second. "Drive safe." "You too." "I'm not driving. I'm collapsing." "Collapse safe." She smiled. It was the first real smile he'd seen on her face. "Adrian." "Yeah? Can I call you sometime?" His stomach did a thing he was not prepared for. "About work?" "About anything." He looked at her. She looked back at him. The hallway was empty. The city was going about its morning outside the glass. Somewhere far below, a man named Calvin was being put into a car with his personal effects in a cardboard box, and his whole life was ending. Somewhere across town, a little girl was eating chocolate chip pancakes and drawing a picture of her father as a robot. And somewhere in the space between those two facts, Nora Vale was asking Adrian Brooks if she could call him sometime. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, you can call me." "Okay? Okay." The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Adrian stepped inside. The doors started to close. "Adrian?" He put his hand out, stopped the door. "Yeah?" "You didn't just save the company. I want you to know that. You also, you stood in front of Gideon and didn't flinch, and you were kind to me. You were kind to me at 4 a.m. when you had no reason to be. I'm not going to forget that either." He didn't know what to say. He nodded once and let his hand drop from the door. It closed between them. He rode down 47 floors in silence. When the elevator opened in the lobby, The morning shift guard was at the front desk instead of Marcus. The guard looked at Adrian. Stained jacket, wet boots, 24 hours of stubble, the face of a man who had been crying for 30 seconds in an elevator, and wisely said nothing. Adrian handed in his visitor badge, walked out into the parking garage, and got into his car. He sat behind the wheel for a while before he started the engine. He thought about Hannah. He didn't cry, exactly. He just sat there and thought about her. About the way she'd laughed at his bad jokes. About the way she'd held Emma the first night in the hospital, with a look on her face like she was trying to memorize every line of the baby's forehead because she knew she wouldn't have enough time. About the way she'd made him promise, at the end, that he wouldn't close himself off. Don't you dare, Adrian. Don't you dare turn into one of those men. Promise me. He had promised. He had broken the promise almost immediately. He started the engine. The drive back to the east side took 40 minutes. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, and the Subaru's windshield wipers made that squeak they'd been making for months. He needed to replace them. He'd been meaning to. Now, with Gideon Hart's check in his pocket, he actually could. He stopped at the bakery on Alder and bought a small cake. Chocolate with chocolate frosting, Emma's favorite. He didn't know why he bought it. He told himself it was because of the check, because they should celebrate. He knew, underneath, that it was because he needed to do something with his hands that was an act of love. He needed to walk into his apartment carrying something sweet. Mrs. Delaney opened the door before he could knock. She's been watching the window for 20 minutes. Is she okay? She's wound up. She knows something is going on. He stepped inside. Mrs. Delaney's apartment smelled like pancakes and old lavender sachets, and the particular clean, papery smell of a home that had been lived in for decades. Emma was on the couch in her purple pajamas, her hair sticking up in every direction, a stuffed elephant in her lap, and a crayon in her hand. She looked up when he walked in, and her whole face changed. Daddy. Hi, baby. She launched off the couch. He caught her. She wrapped her whole small self around him, arms around his neck, legs around his waist, her face buried in his shoulder, and he held her and felt the cake box crush a little against his side, and he didn't care. I saved you a pancake. I heard. I put plastic on it. I heard that too. Daddy? Yeah? You smell like rain. I know, baby. I'm sorry. It's okay, I like it. Mrs. Delaney was watching them from the kitchen doorway, one hand pressed to her chest. She caught Adrian's eye and gave him the smallest nod. It's all right, honey. Everything's all right. He carried Emma to the kitchen. He ate the pancake. It was cold and slightly soggy under its plastic wrap, and it was one of the best things he had ever put in his mouth. Emma sat on his lap and watched him eat it like it was a performance. When he was done, she held up her drawing. This is you. Am I a robot? Half robot. This part is robot. She pointed. This part is Daddy. Which part is Daddy? The heart. He looked at the drawing. She'd drawn a stick figure with metal legs and metal arms and a red lopsided heart in the center of its chest. Above the head she'd written, in her careful kindergarten letters, My dad. That's beautiful, honey. I know. He took her home. He took her home and bathed her and put her in clean pajamas and read her 3 chapters of the book they were working through, and he watched her fall asleep with her hand curled around his thumb the way she had since she was a baby. He eased his hand free. He pulled the blanket up to her chin. He kissed the top of her head. He went to the kitchen. He ate a bowl of cereal standing up at the counter. He put the check on the table. He looked at it for a long time. $8,000. A gift from a stranger he would probably never work for again. He thought about Nora. He tried not to. He thought about her anyway. About the way she had said, "Can I call you sometime?" About the way she had looked at him in the hallway. About the small scar on her cheekbone that he had noticed in Martin's office and had been noticing on and off ever since. He was too tired to untangle any of it. He went to bed. His phone rang at 2:14 p.m. He had been asleep for 3 hours. He fumbled for the phone, his head thick, his mouth dry. The screen said unknown. He almost didn't answer. He answered anyway, out of habit. Adrian Brooks. Mr. Brooks. The voice on the other end was male, calm, unhurried. Adrian didn't recognize it. Who is this? My name is Calvin Reed. Adrian sat up. His whole body went still. We haven't met, Calvin said. But you've made yourself very familiar with my work. How did you get this number? You gave it to the front desk last night. The front desk gave it to me this morning, before my access was revoked. It's amazing how often people forget what's on paper. A pause. I'm not calling to threaten you, Mr. Brooks. I want to make that very clear. I'm calling to talk. I have nothing to say to you. I understand that, but I'd like you to listen for 5 minutes, because what you found last night what you think you found last night is not what you think it is. And I believe when you hear the full story, you'll agree that this has all been a terrible misunderstanding. The logs. The logs can be read many ways, Mr. Brooks. You of all people should know that. Adrian's throat was dry. He swung his legs out of bed and walked quietly into the living room so he wouldn't wake Emma. Gideon told me not to talk to you. Of course he did. So I'm not going to. Before you hang up, just one thing, Mr. Brooks. One thing. Because I think you're a good man, and I think you want to do the right thing, and I think you deserve to know. Know what? The file you recovered last night, the investor package. Did you look at what was in it? No, of course not. You were busy. But you should. Before anyone else sees it. Before Meridian closes the round and the paperwork is signed. Because there are numbers in that deck, Mr. Brooks, that don't match the audited financials. There are projections in that deck that were fabricated. And the reason I accessed the server last night was not to steal the presentation. It was to correct it, to pull the false version and replace it with the real one, before Gideon used it to commit fraud. Adrian didn't answer. I didn't finish because I ran out of time. I was going to talk to Gideon in the morning. I was going to show him what I'd found and ask him to postpone the pitch. Instead, you recovered the original files, the fraudulent files, and handed them back to him. And now they've been presented to Meridian as fact. You're lying. I might be, Mr. Brooks. You're absolutely right. I might be. Calvin's voice was still soft, still calm. But you're also a man who values evidence, and the evidence is in the deck. Look at the projections. Compare them to the audited financials from last quarter. The discrepancies are not subtle. If I'm lying, you'll see it in 5 minutes. If I'm not, well, then you'll have a decision to make. Don't call me again. I won't need to. The line went dead. Adrian stood in his living room with the phone in his hand. His heart was hammering. Outside, a bird was singing on the fire escape, and the afternoon sun was striping the carpet in warm gold bars. And in the next room, his 5-year-old daughter was asleep with a stuffed elephant under her arm. He could hear her breathing. He could hear his own. He sat down on the couch. He thought about Gideon, about the way Gideon had looked at him in the office an hour ago, both hands on his shoulders, saying, I'm not going to forget this. About the envelope in his jacket pocket, about the check that was going to pay for breaks in kindergarten and groceries. He thought about Nora, about the way she had said, he gets ugly when he's scared, about, I've watched 3 good projects die under suspicious circumstances, about every time I've tried to bring it up to Gideon, he waves it off. He thought about Calvin's voice. Look at the projections. Compare them to the audited financials. Calvin could be lying. Calvin almost certainly was lying. Calvin was a man who had been caught and was now trying to save himself by flipping the story, and it was the oldest trick in the book. And Adrian knew it. He had seen it a dozen times. Guilty men were always innocent. Guilty men always had a story. Guilty men always said there's more to it than you know. But he picked up his phone and opened his email. Somewhere in his sent folder was a copy of the investor package. He'd emailed it to himself at 7:04 a.m. as a backup, because he backed everything up on every job, always. Because once in his 20s, he'd lost a client's file and sworn he'd never let it happen again. The file was there. He opened it. He sat on his couch in the striped afternoon sunlight and began to read. And as he read, the bird outside kept singing, and Emma kept breathing in the next room. And the check from Gideon Hart kept sitting on the kitchen table in the envelope, $8,000 he had not yet cashed. And somewhere in the downtown rain-washed glass of the Luxton Tower, a woman named Nora Vale was asleep at her desk with her head on her arm, dreaming of nothing at all. Adrian read for 20 minutes. When he was done, his hands were cold. He set the phone on the coffee table. He stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the fire escape and the little brown bird still singing on the rail. and he thought very carefully about what he was going to do. And then he picked up the phone again and called the one person in the city who might be able to tell him whether he was about to save himself or destroy himself, or both. "Nora," he said when she answered, her voice rough with sleep. "I need to talk to you. Now." "Where are you?" Nora said. "My apartment, East Side, Alder and 23rd. "Adrian, what's going on?" "Calvin called me?" There was a beat of silence on the line. Adrian could hear her sitting up, could hear fabric moving, a chair creaking, a lamp clicking on. "He called you at your home number?" "He said he got it from the front desk log." "That son of a bitch." "Nora, listen to me. He told me something, and I need you to tell me if it's true or not. I need you to be honest with me. Not loyal, honest. Because if it's true, we just handed Gideon a fraudulent presentation and told Meridian it was clean." "Adrian, slow down. What did he say?" Adrian walked back to the couch. He picked up his phone, tapped back into the investor package. "The projections. The 5-year revenue model. He said they don't match the audited financials from last quarter. He said the numbers in this deck are fabricated. He said that's why he was on the server last night. He said he was trying to replace them before the pitch." I looked, Nora. I'm looking at the deck right now. Slide 14 shows a Q2 revenue of $11.2 million. The audited financial summary in your company's internal pack, the one I pulled out of the recovery along with everything else, shows Q2 at 7.8. That's a $3.5 million gap. That's not a rounding error. Nora was quiet. "Nora, I'm here." Is he telling the truth? Another silence, this one longer. Adrian could hear her breathing. "I don't know," she said. I don't know." "That's not a no. It's not a no." Jesus. "Adrian, listen to me. Listen. I've been at Vail, at the company, for 2 years. I'm in strategy. I don't see the audited books. I see what finance tells me to see, but I've always had a feeling. There have been things. Quarters where the numbers felt off. Projections that got revised upward at the last minute. Martin made a joke once about how our revenue grew 8% in the back half of a quarter that hadn't happened yet. And I laughed because that's how it was said. Like a joke. But it didn't feel like a joke. And you never said anything." "I said 100 things. To Gideon, to Lenora, to Calvin, actually. Calvin. 3 months ago. I sat in Calvin's office and I asked him if we were being aggressive with our numbers, and he told me to mind my own goddamn department." "Nora. I know. Nora, if Calvin is telling the truth, I'm an accessory to fraud. I know, Adrian, I know." He could hear very faintly that she had started to cry. Not loud. Just a thickness in her voice, the way a person's voice got when they were trying to hold something in. "I'm coming over," he said. "What?" "I'm coming to you, or you come here. Either way. We can't do this on the phone. I need you to look at the deck with me. I need your eyes. You know the business. I don't. You have your daughter. Mrs. Delaney will come sit. She's across the hall." "Adrian, we don't have time, Nora. If this is real, we have 36 hours before Meridian signs. And we just handed Gideon the weapon." Okay, give me your address. I'll come to you. I can be there in 40 minutes. He gave her the address. He hung up. He stood in the middle of his living room for a second with his hands on his hips and tried to breathe. Emma was awake when he opened her bedroom door. She was lying on her back with the elephant on her chest, staring at the plastic solar system mobile over her bed. "Daddy?" "Hi, baby." "Is someone coming over?" "Yeah, a lady I work with. Is that okay?" She considered him seriously. "Is she nice?" "She's very nice." "Okay. Mrs. Delaney's going to come sit with you for a little bit, all right? Daddy and the lady have to talk about grown-up stuff." "Boring stuff?" "Very boring stuff." "Okay." He kissed her forehead. He walked across the hall and knocked on Mrs. Delaney's door. She opened it in her blue housecoat, a crossword in one hand, and when he asked if she could watch Emma for an hour or two, she looked at his face and didn't ask why. "Go put tea on, honey. I'll be there in 2 minutes." He put tea on. He pulled out his laptop. He opened the deck on the big screen. He opened the audited financial summary in a second window. He started making a list of the discrepancies, pen in hand, on the back of an envelope from his electric company. He was on the fifth item when Mrs. Delaney let herself in with her own key and went quietly into Emma's room and closed the door behind her. Nora arrived 38 minutes later. He opened the door and for a second he didn't recognize her. She had changed out of the cream blouse. She was in jeans and a gray hoodie 2 sizes too big. Her hair was still wet from a shower. Her face was bare of makeup, and she looked, for the first time since he'd met her, like exactly what she was. A tired 26-year-old woman carrying something she couldn't set down. "Hi. Hi, come in." She came in. She looked around his apartment. The small kitchen, the old couch, Emma's crayon drawings magneted to the refrigerator, the cracked coffee table with the ring of mug stains. And something in her face softened. This is nice. It's small. It's a home. There's a difference. He didn't know what to say to that, so he said, "Tea? Please." They sat at the kitchen table. He poured her a mug. He slid his laptop around so she could see it. He handed her the envelope with his scribbled list. She read it, and the color went out of her face by the third line. "Oh no." "Yeah. Oh no, Adrian. Tell me I'm wrong." "You're not wrong. These are the ones I saw in the department draft in March. They got changed. Somebody changed them. They were 7.8 in March. They became 11.2 by July. Who changes them? Finance, under the CFO. Who reports to, Gideon. Yeah. Not Calvin. Not Calvin. Calvin's CTO. He has nothing to do with the financials. He wouldn't even be in the room when numbers like this got massaged." Adrian leaned back in his chair. He looked up at the ceiling. He could hear Mrs. Delaney's low voice in Emma's room reading a book. "So Calvin wasn't lying," he said. "I don't know that yet. I know the numbers are wrong. I don't know that he was trying to fix them. He could have been trying to steal them. He could have been trying to blackmail Gideon with them. He could have been trying to tank the round for some reason we don't know. He could be guilty of what we accused him of and also be right about the deck." That's a lot of possible Calvins. "I know. What do we do?" Nora set the envelope down. She wrapped both hands around her mug. She stared at the table for a long moment. "I don't know." "You have to know." "I don't, Adrian. I'm sorry. I'm a strategist. I'm 26 years old. I'm not built for this. An hour ago, I was sleeping at my desk, and now you're asking me if the man who just handed you $8,000 is a criminal. Is he?" "I don't know." "Best guess." She looked at him. "Best guess," she said slowly, "is yes." The words sat in the kitchen for a long time. Adrian got up. He walked to the window. The afternoon was turning toward evening, the sun low now, throwing long shadows across the brick of the building next door. A neighbor was grilling something on a fire escape 3 floors down. The smell of charcoal drifted in through the screen. "I can't unrecover those files," he said. "That's the thing. That's what keeps coming back to me. I did the job I was paid to do. I fixed what was broken, and it turns out what was broken was the thing that was protecting Meridian from being defrauded. I fixed the fraud." "You didn't know." "It doesn't matter if I knew." "Adrian, it doesn't matter, Nora. If Meridian signs that paper in 36 hours based on numbers I pulled out of a hard drive, and those numbers are a lie, then $2 billion moves into a company that shouldn't have it. And when it comes out, because these things always come out, my name is going to be on the forensic recovery log. Adrian Brooks recovered the files. That's in the paperwork. That's in the server logs. That's in Gideon's head, for that matter. I'm the guy who saved the pitch. I'm the guy whose career is done the second that fraud surfaces. What do you want to do?" He turned from the window. "I want to show it to Gideon." Nora blinked. "What?" "I want to show him. I want to put the 2 versions side by side and put them in front of him and watch his face. Because maybe, he doesn't know. Maybe the CFO has been cooking the books without his knowledge, and Gideon walked into Meridian this morning and gave a pitch he genuinely believed was true. Maybe Gideon's a victim in this too." "You don't believe that." "I want to believe it. That's not the same thing." "I know." She stood up. She walked to the window and stood next to him. Not close, but next to him. Outside, the grill smoke curled up past the fire escape and dispersed into the gold light. "Adrian," she said, "if we show him, And he did know. He'll destroy us both. I know. He'll say we're lying. He'll say the real deck was the one in his hands this morning, and the one we're showing him is a forgery. He'll say Calvin got to us. He'll say I was sleeping with you. He'll say whatever he has to say. I know. He has lawyers, he has money. He has Meridian eating out of his hand. We have an envelope from your electric company and a hunch. We have evidence. We have evidence that is deeply inconvenient to him. That's not the same thing. I know, Nora. I know what we're looking at. I know what it costs. I'm asking you anyway. She was quiet for a long time. Why? Because my daughter is in the next room and she's 5, and she drew a picture of me today with a heart in the middle of my chest. And if I let this go, if I cash this check and walk away and pretend I didn't see what I saw, that heart's going to start to hurt every time I look at it. And one day she's going to ask me if I'm a good man, and I'm going to have to lie to her. Nora didn't answer right away. She reached up and pressed the heel of her hand to her eye. You're not going to make this easy for me, are you? No, I'm not. Okay? Okay? Okay, Adrian, okay. I'm in. You sure? No, but I'm in anyway. He almost smiled. Thank you. Don't thank me. We're not done yet. They got to work. They spent the next 2 hours building the case. Nora knew where the original department drafts were stored. She logged into the company VPN from Adrian's laptop, with her own credentials carefully, and pulled down the unaltered quarterly reports, the ones finance had sent her team in March before the numbers got massaged. She exported them, saved them locally, and closed the VPN before anyone at Vail could flag an after-hours session. Adrian took both versions and built a simple, stark comparison document. Left column, the numbers Nora had seen in March. Right column, the numbers in the pitch deck. 19 discrepancies, every single one of them in the company's favor. This can't be Gideon alone, Nora said. She was pacing now, her hoodie sleeves pulled down over her hands, her socked feet silent on the linoleum. This took finance, this took the CFO, this took at least 3 people, probably 5. Who's the CFO? Marielle Osana. She and Gideon went to business school together. Great, another old friend. Yeah. Will she back him? To the grave. Adrian sighed. He rubbed his eyes. The screen was starting to blur. Okay. So walking into Gideon's office is a non-starter. He'll circle the wagons before we finish the first sentence. Agreed. Then who do we take this to? Meridian. He looked at her. Meridian? We walk up to the investor and hand them a document that tanks the deal we were paid to close. That's the whole point, Adrian. If this is fraud, Meridian is the victim. They need to know. They have an in-house compliance team. If we put this in front of their general counsel, they can delay the round quietly and audit the numbers themselves. No press, no arrest, no public accusation, just a 48-hour pause. And Gideon finds out in 10 minutes. Gideon finds out in 10 minutes. Yes. And then he comes for us both. I know. I'm not pretending otherwise. Nora. What? You could lose your job. I will lose my job. You could lose more than your job. I know. Your sister's loans. I know, Adrian. Then why are you doing it? She stopped pacing. She looked at him. Because I've already spent 2 years knowing something was wrong and pretending I didn't. And I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to wake up at 45 and realize I spent my whole 20s being complicit because it paid well. He looked at her. Okay, he said. Okay. Tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. She left just after 8. At the door, she hesitated. She turned. She was small in the oversized hoodie, smaller than she had been in her blouse, and her face in the hallway light looked very young and very tired. Adrian. Yeah. Whatever happens tomorrow. I'm glad I called you. Last night. I'm glad the other 6 didn't answer. Me too. Good night. Good night. She went. He closed the door. He stood in the hall for a minute with his hand on the knob and listened to her footsteps go down the stairs. Then he walked to Emma's room. Mrs. Delaney was asleep in the armchair next to the bed, her crossword in her lap, her glasses slipped down her nose. Emma was asleep too, on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek, the elephant on the pillow next to her. The room was warm and smelled like soap and the faint, sweet, specific smell of his daughter's hair. He eased the crossword out of Mrs. Delaney's hands. He set it on the little table. He touched her shoulder. Dee, I'm back. Oh, honey, thank you. Don't thank me. I had a nap. How'd it go? It was okay. I'll tell you tomorrow. Your friend is lovely. Yeah? I liked her voice through the door. You don't always hear a good voice, you know. Most voices, you hear them and you know the person is a certain way. Hers is a good one. He huffed a laugh. I'll pass it along. You do that. She shuffled out. He locked the door behind her. He walked back to Emma's room and stood for a long time watching her sleep. The little rise and fall of her chest. The elephant with its one eye staring at the ceiling. The purple comforter she'd picked out herself at a thrift store and which she loved with a devotion that had nothing to do with the fact that it had a stain on one corner. He thought about what he was going to do in the morning. He thought about what it could cost. He thought about the check on the kitchen table. He went to the kitchen. He picked up the envelope. He held it for a long time. Then he put it in a drawer and closed the drawer and walked away from it. He didn't sleep much that night. At 6:45 the next morning, Nora called him. She was already dressed. She was already in a cab. I got us the meeting. With who? Elaine Park. She's Meridian's senior compliance counsel. I went to Stanford with her husband. I texted him at midnight. He called me at 5 a.m. and said Elaine would give us 15 minutes at 8. Jesus, Nora. I know. That's incredible. It's also the last favor I'll ever get from that part of my life. After today, I am radioactive in this industry. We'll figure it out. Yeah, meet me at the Arbor Grand Hotel at 7:45. Lobby, bring your laptop, bring everything. On my way. He woke Mrs. Delaney. He explained quickly, quietly, that he had an emergency meeting and he didn't know when he'd be back. She waved him off. She told him Emma would be fine. She told him to put on a clean shirt and shave because whoever he was meeting deserved to think he'd tried. He shaved. He put on the one good shirt he owned. He left. The Arbor Grand was the kind of hotel that had a doorman and a pianist in the lobby at 8 in the morning. Nora was standing near the pianist when Adrian came in, holding 2 coffees from the hotel cafe, her hair pulled back, a navy blazer over the gray hoodie, which was, Adrian realized with a small laugh, possibly the greatest outfit he had ever seen on a person. You laughed, she said. You're wearing a hoodie under a blazer. She hit. I panicked. I don't own blazers anymore. I threw one on from a conference. You look great. I look like a grad student on trial. You look great. She handed him a coffee. Elaine's in the mezzanine, rooms booked under her name. Follow me. They went up. Elaine Park was in her late 40s, silver hair cut in a blunt bob, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, a navy suit that fit her the way expensive things fit women who had spent decades being underestimated. She was already seated at a small conference table when they walked in, with a legal pad, a fountain pen, and a cup of tea. Nora. Elaine, thank you. Brian said you sounded like you were going to be sick. I was. Elaine looked at Adrian. She looked back at Nora. She did not smile. You have 12 minutes. They used every one of them. Adrian walked her through the deck, the comparison, the 19 discrepancies, the timestamps, the server logs, the call from Calvin the afternoon before. He didn't editorialize. He didn't speculate. He laid out what he knew and how he knew it and who he was, and he watched her face, and her face did nothing. Elaine Park's face was a professional face that had spent 20 years in rooms like this, and it gave away nothing, and Adrian understood, as he watched her, why she was the person Nora had gone to. When he finished, Elaine was silent for a full 15 seconds. Mr. Brooks. Yes, ma'am. Why are you here? Excuse me? You are not an employee of Vale Innovations. You are a freelance contractor who has been paid in full. Your professional obligation to this situation ended yesterday at noon. Why are you sitting in a hotel room with me at 8 in the morning telling me that your client has committed fraud? Adrian thought about it. He thought about Emma. He thought about the heart in the middle of the robot's chest. Because I can't cash the check otherwise. Elaine's eyes went to him, sharp. Explain that. There's a check on my kitchen table from the company, $8,000. It's more money than I've held in my hand in a year. And if I cash it knowing what I know, I become part of this. And I have a daughter, and I would rather be broke than be the kind of man she grows up calling daddy and not meaning it. Elaine looked at him for a long time. Then, very slowly, she uncapped her fountain pen and wrote something on her legal pad. Miss Vale. Yes, you understand that by bringing this to me you are effectively ending your employment. Yes. You understand that Vale Innovations will almost certainly sue you. They will claim breach of fiduciary duty. They will try to take every cent you have. Yes. You understand that I cannot protect you from that. Yes. Elaine closed her pen. She set it down on the pad. Good, she said, because I was prepared to walk out if either of you didn't understand what you were doing. Nora let out a breath. Adrian hadn't realized he'd been holding one. Leave me your files, Elaine said. Both of you. Everything. The deck, the comparison, the server logs, the badge records, Mr. Brooks's call history from yesterday. I will have it verified by end of day. If what you are showing me is accurate, Meridian will delay the round pending an independent audit. There will be no signing tomorrow, and this, Ms. Vale, will move very quickly from here. Yes, go home. Both of you. Don't speak to anyone at Vale. Don't answer your phones for anyone you don't know. If Mr. Hart contacts you, refer him to me. My card. She slid 2 cards across the table. Thank you, Nora said. Her voice was thick. Don't thank me yet, Ms. Vale. You've done a hard thing, and I respect you for it. That does not mean it will go well. Now go. They went. In the elevator down, neither of them spoke. In the lobby, Nora stopped walking. She turned toward the pianist, who was playing something soft and slow, and she put both hands over her face and stood there for a second, breathing. You okay? Adrian said, quiet. No. Me either. She dropped her hands. I have to go home and pack. Pack? I have a feeling I'm not going to be in my apartment for a while. Nora, I need to not be where Gideon can find me easily, just for a day or two, until this breaks. Adrian looked at her. He looked at the lobby, at the piano, at the uniformed doorman holding the door for a couple in matching beige coats. Come to my place. She turned. What? Come to my place. Just for a day, until Elaine does what she said she'd do. My building has a locked front door. Nobody knows you. Gideon doesn't have my address. I mean, Calvin had my number, so who knows? But you'll be safer with me than alone. Adrian, I have a couch. It's not a great couch, but it's a couch. You have a 5-year-old who will love you, who already told me this morning that she wants to meet the lady who laughed at my ranch dressing story. Nora stared at him. You told your daughter the ranch dressing story. She asked why I was shaving for a meeting. And that's what you told her. I told her about a lady who brought me coffee. She asked what else. I told her she laughed at my ranch dressing story. She deduced the rest on her own. She's very efficient. Nora laughed. Once. Short and wet. Okay. Okay? Okay. I'll come. For one day. And I sleep on the couch. You sleep on the couch. Adrian. Yeah. I don't know how to thank you. Stop thanking me. You keep thanking me. It's getting weird. I'll stop. Good. They walked out into the morning. The day that followed was the longest of Adrian's life, and also one of the quietest. They went to Nora's apartment. She packed a bag. He stood in her doorway because she didn't want him to see the inside of the place. It's a mess, she said. It's always a mess. And she came out 10 minutes later with a duffel and a laptop bag and a small cactus in a ceramic pot. He'll die if I leave him, she said, handing Adrian the cactus. Be careful with him. His name is Gerald. They drove to Adrian's. Mrs. Delaney was there with Emma. Nora met Emma in the kitchen. Emma looked up from her cereal with huge, wary eyes, and Nora crouched down slowly and said, Hi, I'm Nora. I work with your dad. And Emma examined her for a long, careful moment, and then Emma said, You're the lady he shaved for. And Nora went beet red, and Adrian laughed so hard he had to sit down. By 3 that afternoon, Emma had made Nora a friendship bracelet out of pink plastic beads. By 4, Nora's phone had started ringing. It was Gideon. 3 missed calls, then a text. Where are you? Then a second text. Nora, answer your phone. Then a third, longer one, and Adrian saw her face when she read it. He knows, she said. About Meridian? Somebody at Meridian told him there's a compliance review. He thinks it was me. It was you. Yeah, but he's figured it out in 4 hours, which is not what Elaine promised me. She said she'd keep it quiet until end of day. Maybe someone else leaked it. Maybe. She set the phone down. She didn't answer it. Her hand was trembling slightly. At 5:17 p.m., Gideon called Adrian. Adrian looked at the screen. He looked at Nora, who was on the floor with Emma, helping her color in a dinosaur. He walked to the bedroom with the phone. He closed the door. He answered. Adrian Brooks. You ungrateful piece of shit. Adrian sat down on the bed. Mr. Hart, I paid you. I paid you $8,000. I told you I owed you. I told you I would never forget it. And this is how you... I haven't cashed the check. That stopped him. There was a beat of silence. What? The check is in my kitchen drawer. I haven't cashed it. I won't. You can send someone to come get it. I'll leave it with my neighbor. Adrian, I'm not doing this because I'm ungrateful, Mr. Hart. I'm doing it because your numbers are wrong. And you know they are. And if you don't, you should ask Marielle Osana why the Q2 figures in the deck are $3.5 million higher than the Q2 figures in the March department drafts. The silence on the other end was different now. It wasn't rage anymore. It was something colder. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe not. You think you're being a good man. You think Meridian is going to thank you. They're not. They're going to bury this under a compliance review that lasts 18 months. And my company is going to go under. And 314 people are going to lose their jobs. And you will have done that, Adrian. You will have done that with your little ethical stunt. Or you'll fix your numbers and the deal will still close. Not in the next 48 hours, I won't. Then maybe it shouldn't have closed in 48 hours. Gideon was quiet. Adrian could hear him breathing. Where is Nora? She's safe. She's with you, isn't she? She's safe. You think you're protecting her. You think you're some kind of hero. You're a technician, Adrian. You don't even understand what you're holding. You don't understand what it's worth. You don't understand what I built. I understand what fraud is. You understand nothing. Goodbye, Mr. Hart. Adrian. Adrian, listen to me. One chance only. You walk this back. You call Elaine Park tonight and you tell her there was an error in the deck you showed her, a version control problem. You tell her you were confused. You tell her the numbers in the deck are the real numbers and you simply pulled the wrong draft from the server. That's all. One phone call. I will wire you $250,000 tomorrow. In cash if you want. To any bank, under any name. Nobody will ever know. You walk away rich. I close my round. Nora comes back to work. Everyone wins. That's the offer. One time. Adrian closed his eyes. He thought about Emma in the next room, coloring a dinosaur with a woman who had come to his apartment carrying a cactus. He thought about the $8,000 in the drawer. He thought about what $250,000 would buy. Years of rent, college savings, a house, Emma's own room with a window, a yard, a swing set. He thought about the heart in the middle of the robot's chest. No, he said. Adrian? No, Mr. Hart. You will regret this. Probably. You will regret this for the rest of your life. Maybe. But my daughter won't. He hung up. He sat on the bed for a minute with his hands on his knees. He was shaking a little. He could feel it in his thighs. He breathed, counted, breathed again. When he came out, Emma was standing in the hallway with the pink bracelet held up on one finger. Daddy? Yeah, baby. I made Nora a bracelet and she's going to teach me how to do the blue kind. That's amazing. She said we can do it tomorrow. He looked past Emma. Nora was standing in the kitchen doorway, her hands in her sleeves, her eyes very carefully on his. Yeah, he said. You can do it tomorrow. Emma ran back to the living room. Nora walked to him. She stopped 3 feet away. He called. What did he say? He offered me $250,000 to walk it back. Her face did not move. She had known, maybe, or had suspected. And? I said no. Nora closed the distance then. Not a lot of it. 2 steps. She put one hand on his chest, right over his shirt pocket. Right about where, in Emma's drawing, the red lopsided heart had been. "Okay," she said. "Okay." Her hand stayed there for a moment longer, and then she dropped it, and she turned and walked back to the living room where Emma was calling her name and Adrian stood in the hallway and breathed. Outside, the city was turning gold again. The storm from 2 nights ago felt like a year ago. In a conference room on the 47th floor of a black glass tower downtown, a senior compliance counsel named Elaine Park was on her 3rd phone call of the hour, a fountain pen in her hand, and a legal pad filling up with small, careful notes. And somewhere across the river, a man named Calvin Reed was sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at a wall and trying to decide whether he dared believe what he had just heard. Adrian walked into the living room. Emma was on the carpet teaching Nora about a triceratops. Nora was nodding seriously. He sat down on the floor with them. "What are you coloring?" he said. "A dinosaur," Emma said without looking up. "Its name is Beverly." "That's a great name." "I know." Nora glanced up at him. She smiled. It was tired. It was real. He smiled back. And for the first time in a very long time, Adrian Brooks sat on his living room floor with his daughter and another person. And he was not alone. And he was not the widower. And he was not the tired man with the stained jacket. And he was not anybody's technician. He was just a father and a man and somebody trying to do the right thing. And the phone in his pocket did not ring again that night. The call from Elaine Park came at 7:42 the next morning. Adrian was at the stove making eggs. Nora was at the kitchen table with Emma, working on the blue bracelet she'd promised. They had been up since 6 because Emma had been up since 6, and Emma had decided that the lady on the couch was now part of breakfast, which meant Nora had not been allowed to sleep past her. His phone rang. He saw the name and handed the spatula to Nora without a word. "Miss Park." "Mr. Brooks, you're on speaker. Miss Vale with you?" "She's here." "Put me on speaker, please." He did. He set the phone in the middle of the kitchen table. Emma looked up from her beads, sensed the shift in the room the way kids do, and went quiet. Adrian put a finger to his lips. She nodded, solemn. "Good morning, Ms. Vale." "Good morning, Elaine. I'll be brief. My team worked through the night. The discrepancies you flagged are consistent with deliberate manipulation across at least 6 quarters. Meridian's managing partners were briefed at 5 this morning. At 6:15, Meridian formally withdrew from the funding round pending a full third-party audit. Mr. Hart was notified by letter at 6:30. The SEC has been informed as of 7 a.m. per our compliance obligations. This is now out of my hands and out of yours. Nora closed her eyes. Elaine, yes, thank you. Don't thank me, Ms. Vale. You did the work. I just received it. What happens now? Now the regulators do their job. It is likely there will be civil actions. It is possible there will be criminal charges. Mr. Hart has retained counsel already. His counsel has, I am told, a lot of calls to make today. A pause. Ms. Vale, I would like to ask you something, on a personal level, off the record. Okay. What do you want from this? What do I mean, specifically, from me, from Meridian? Do you want a job? Do you want a reference? Do you want to be kept out of the press? I can make several of those things happen. Tell me what you need. Nora looked at Adrian across the table. He didn't say anything. This wasn't his question. I need the truth to come out clean, she said. Not sensationalized, not leaked, just clean. If the press gets it, fine, but I don't want to be the story. I want the fraud to be the story. I don't want to be on a morning show. I don't want a profile. I want to be forgotten as fast as possible and allowed to get another job in 6 months. That I can do. And Adrian. Yes. Adrian doesn't get dragged into this. He's a contractor. He recovered files. He called it in when he realized what he'd recovered. That's all he did. I don't want his name in anything. I don't want him deposed. I don't want reporters at his apartment. He has a daughter. I will do what I can, Ms. Vale. I won't promise, but I will do what I can. Thank you. Mr. Brooks. Yes, ma'am. You were right, by the way, about the check. Ma'am, if you had cashed it, this would have gone differently for you. My compliance team noted that you never did. It was the first thing that made your account credible. I thought you'd want to know. Adrian looked at the drawer. Thank you. Both of you, stay home today. Don't answer numbers you don't know. If anything escalates on your end, call me directly. The line clicked off. For a long moment, nobody in the kitchen moved. Then Emma said, "Is that the lady who's helping?" "Yeah, baby, that's the lady who's helping." "Is she going to help Nora too?" Adrian looked at his daughter, 5 years old, not missing a thing. "Yeah, honey, she's going to help Nora too." "Good." Emma went back to her beads. Nora pressed the heels of both hands against her eyes. Her shoulders were shaking, very small, very contained. Adrian walked around the table. He put a hand on her back between her shoulder blades, just flat against her sweatshirt. He didn't say anything. He just stood there with his hand on her back while she cried, without making any sound. The way grown women cry when they have practiced not bothering anyone with it. "Sorry," she said after a minute. "Don't." "I'm okay." "I know you are." She took a breath. "Let it out." Wiped her face with the inside of her sleeve. She looked up at him, and her eyes were red, and there was a strand of hair stuck to her cheek, and she did not look like a strategist from a glass tower. She looked like a 26-year-old woman who had just done something that scared her very badly and had survived it. "The eggs are burning," she said. Adrian laughed. A real laugh, from the belly, the first one in a long time. "The eggs are burning." "Yeah." He went back to the stove. The rest of that morning was strangely quiet. The storm Adrian had been bracing for did not arrive. Not in the way he'd expected. No reporters, no process servers, no thundering knock at the door. His phone rang twice from unknown numbers, and he did not answer. Nora's phone buzzed steadily for about 2 hours and then went silent, as if the whole machine on the other side had moved past her and on to bigger prey. At 11, they let Emma watch cartoons in the living room. Adrian and Nora sat at the kitchen table with coffee and the local news on his laptop, muted, watching a banner crawl across the bottom of the screen. Portland tech firm, Vail. Innovations under federal review. CEO Gideon Hart, unavailable for comment. Nora stared at it for a long time. 2 years of my life. I know. The worst part is I don't even feel angry. I feel sad. That's almost worse. You loved the job. I loved the idea of the job. I loved the version of me I thought I was going to be there. I don't know if I ever actually loved the job. Adrian turned the laptop screen away. He closed it. What are you going to do? I don't know. Take your time. I don't have the luxury of time, Adrian. I have a lease in 3 weeks. I have my sister's last payment due in May. I have a cat at my friend's apartment who misses me. I cannot just sit. Then don't just sit. But don't panic either. Elaine will help. She said she'd make calls. Calls take weeks. I know. She picked up her mug. She put it down without drinking. Can I stay here another night? Yeah. I don't want to go back to my apartment yet. Nora, you can stay as long as you need to. I'll pay rent. No. Adrian, you're not paying me rent. That's not happening. Stop. I can't just... Nora. What? Stop. She stopped. They sat at the table. Emma's cartoon music drifted in from the living room. The refrigerator hummed. The pipes in the building made their old complaining sounds. You know what I keep thinking about, Nora said after a while. What? Calvin. Yeah. He called you. And we never gave him the credit, even in there with Elaine. We didn't say Calvin was right. We said we figured it out. He still tried to sabotage the pitch, Nora. He didn't walk into Gideon's office and blow the whistle. He tried to do it alone at night with no backup. That's not bravery. That's something else. Maybe. And we don't know why. Maybe he had his own reasons. Maybe he wanted leverage over Gideon. Maybe he was going to quietly fix the deck and then use what he knew to negotiate a bigger share of the company. We don't know. But he wasn't wrong about the numbers. No, he wasn't wrong about the numbers. Nora nodded slowly. I'm going to call him. Now? Not now, but soon. I want to hear his version, the whole thing. I don't owe him anything, but I owe it to myself to hear it. Okay. You think that's crazy. I think it's honest. She smiled just a little. You're a strange man, Adrian Brooks. People have said so. Mrs. Delaney knocked at noon with a casserole and a stack of mail that had gotten delivered to her door by mistake. She looked at Nora sitting at the kitchen table in borrowed sweatpants and did not blink. She set the casserole on the stove. She patted Adrian's cheek. She said to Nora, "I'm Dee. I'm across the hall. If he feeds you cereal for dinner, I'm coming over here with a spoon and hitting him." And Nora laughed, and Dee left. "I love her," Nora said. "Everyone loves her." "I can see why." After lunch, Emma fell asleep on the couch with her head on Nora's leg. Nora sat very still. She looked down at Emma with an expression that Adrian, watching from the kitchen doorway, didn't quite know what to do with. It was not the look of a woman who had met a child. It was the look of a woman who had just noticed something about herself she hadn't known was there. She glanced up, caught him watching. "Is this okay?" she whispered. "Yeah." "I don't want to wake her. She'll sleep through a parade. You're fine." "I've never what?" She looked back down at Emma. Her hand hovered for a second, and then, very carefully, she rested it on Emma's hair. Emma did not stir. "I've never had a kid fall asleep on me," she said, quiet. "How does it feel?" "Heavy." "Yeah." "Good heavy." "Yeah." He watched her sit there with his daughter for a while longer. Then he turned and went back to the kitchen before she could see his face. In the afternoon, Gideon's lawyer called. Adrian recognized the area code and almost didn't answer, but something made him. A man named Harris Flint, fast-talking, smooth, the kind of voice that was paid $300 an hour to sound reasonable. "Mr. Brooks, Harris Flint, I represent Mr. Hart. I understand you've had a difficult week." "I'm fine. I'd like to talk about the check." "There's nothing to talk about. It's in my drawer. I haven't cashed it. Your client can have it back." "That's very good of you. There's also the matter of a confidentiality agreement you signed when you took the job." "I didn't sign a confidentiality agreement." A pause. "Mr. Brooks, you signed an NDA at reception when you entered the building." "I signed a visitor log. I didn't sign an NDA. Nobody put a document in front of me. I was let in at 2 a.m. with a badge and sent to the 47th floor. If there's an NDA with my name on it, somebody forged my signature." Another pause. Longer. "I'll have to verify that." "You do that. In the meantime, Mr. Brooks, I would urge you very strongly not to speak to any press about Mr. Hart, his company, or any events from the past 72 hours. Regardless of what you did or did not sign, there are tort considerations. Mr. Flint, yes, I am not speaking to the press. I have not spoken to the press. I have no intention of speaking to the press. Tell Mr. Hart the check is in a drawer and he can send someone to get it whenever he wants. Tell Mr. Hart that if he contacts me again personally, I will forward that contact to the SEC counsel handling his case. Tell Mr. Hart goodbye." He hung up. Nora was standing in the kitchen doorway. She had heard. "You handled that well." "I don't feel like I handled it well. My heart is going 100. Trust me, you handled it well." He sat down at the table. His hands were shaking. He looked at them, annoyed, and put them flat on the wood. "I don't know why I'm shaking. I didn't do anything wrong." "You're shaking because for 3 days you have been carrying something that is much too big for one person, and you did it anyway. And your body is noticing, finally, that it was scared." He looked at her. "Where did you learn to say things like that?" "My mother." "She sounds like she was something." "She was." Nora sat down across from him. She reached across the table. She put her hand over his on the wood, covering it. "Adrian, yeah, I know this is not the time. I know you have a daughter sleeping on the couch, and we are sitting in the aftermath of something that is not over yet. I know that. But I need to say something because if I don't say it now, I will never say it, and I don't want to be the woman who doesn't say things." "Okay. I am falling for you." He did not move. "And I don't know what to do with that. I am not going to do anything about it. Not now, not with everything that just happened, and not with Emma, and not with you still being whatever you still are, with Hannah. I am telling you because I am tired of pretending, and because you deserve to know where I actually am, so that you can tell me if this is a thing I should bury immediately and never bring up again." He looked at her. He looked at her hand on his. "Nora, yeah. I watched you fall asleep on my couch last night, from the hallway. Emma had asked for water, and I was going to bring it to her, and I walked past the couch, and you were already out. And I stood there for a full minute watching you breathe, and I felt something I haven't felt in a long time. I felt grateful. Not romantic, not yet, I don't think. Just grateful. that there was another person in my house, that Emma and I were not the only two people inside these walls. He took a breath. And then this morning you taught my daughter how to string beads, and I watched you do it, and I thought, this is what I gave up hoping for. This. Somebody in my kitchen. Somebody who laughs at my stupid stories. Somebody who is not trying to fix me or feel sorry for me or be careful around my grief. Just somebody who is here. He turned his hand under hers so their palms were together. I don't know what I am, Nora. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know what I have to offer you. I have a 5-year-old and a Subaru with bad brakes and $8,000 I can't spend and a closet full of my dead wife's clothes. I have not been able to throw away in 4 years. That's what I bring to the table. You bring more than that. Not much. More than that. Okay? They sat there with their hands on the table and Emma asleep in the next room, and the refrigerator humming, and a banner on some muted news feed somewhere in the city announcing the end of Gideon Hart's career. And for a while, neither of them said anything else. Eventually, Nora said, okay, so we don't do anything. Not yet. We just know. We just know. Deal? Deal. Can I keep my hand here, though? Yeah, you can keep your hand there. She did. Emma woke up around 3, disoriented and cranky and in need of apple juice. Nora moved fast, like she was practiced at it, which she was not. She got juice. She got a blanket. She sat on the floor and let Emma lean against her knee, and for 40 minutes the three of them watched a show about a dog who solved mysteries. And nothing happened, and nothing was wrong. And Adrian sat in his armchair and understood, in a quiet corner of his mind, that this ordinary Tuesday afternoon with a cartoon and a tired child and a woman on his floor was the thing he had stopped letting himself want. Hannah would have liked this. Hannah would have looked at Nora on the floor and at Emma against her knee and at him in the armchair, and she would have smiled that small private smile she used to get, the one that meant I told you. He let himself sit with it. He did not cry. He did not push it away. He just sat with it. At 5, his phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Brooks, this is Calvin Reed. I understand Meridian pulled out this morning. I want you to know that you did the right thing and that I am sorry I did not do it more cleanly. I will not contact you again. He read it twice. He showed it to Nora. She read it. She looked at him. What do you want to do with it? Nothing. I think nothing. Yeah. He didn't reply. He put the phone face down on the coffee table. That evening, the three of them ate Mrs. Delaney's casserole at the kitchen table. Emma told Nora a long and meandering story about a kid at school named Wyatt who had eaten a bug on a dare. Nora reacted with exactly the appropriate level of horror. Emma approved. Emma asked Nora to braid her hair. Nora said she didn't know how. Adrian offered to teach her. Emma looked at them both with a kind of patient superiority and said, Fine, I'll teach both of you. And then did, in fact, instruct the two of them on a 4-strand braid that Adrian had never successfully completed in 5 years of single fatherhood. After dinner, Adrian washed dishes and Nora dried. They did not talk much. They did not need to. At one point, Nora bumped him with her hip, on purpose, and he bumped her back. Emma went to bed at 8. Adrian read to her. 3 chapters. She fell asleep on the second. When he came out into the living room, Nora was on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders, looking at the drawing of the robot on the refrigerator. He had stuck it up that morning with a magnet Emma had made in school. This is the drawing, she said. That's the drawing. She really drew you with a heart. She really did. Adrian. Yeah. I think you underestimate how much of that heart is still working. He sat down on the couch next to her, not close, but close enough that his arm was along the back behind her shoulders, not touching, but near. Maybe, he said. I think a lot of it is working. Maybe. She leaned just slightly into his side. He let her. Her head came to rest on his shoulder. Her hair smelled like his shampoo, because she had used his shampoo, because she had been wearing his sweatpants for a day and a half, and had stopped pretending any of this was temporary. They sat on the couch in the lamp-lit living room. The news had moved past Vale Innovations. Somebody on the TV was talking about weather. A front was moving in. Another storm, they said. Big one. might last through the weekend. Adrian. Yeah. I don't want to go home tomorrow. Then don't. Okay? Okay. She closed her eyes. He watched the lamp. He watched the rain start, very softly, against the window. He felt her breathing against his ribs, and he thought about his daughter sleeping in the next room, and he thought about the drawing on the fridge, and he thought, very quietly, about the fact that he was not alone in his house on a Tuesday night. And for the first time in 4 years, he let himself stay inside the thought, instead of walking away from it. Outside, the city glittered through the rain, and inside, Adrian Brooks, 32 years old, widower, freelance tech fixer, father of one small pink backpack human, did not say anything at all. He just breathed, and he felt a woman's weight against his shoulder, and he understood, without needing to name it, that something in him had just, very quietly, without ceremony, begun again. 6 weeks later, Adrian stood at the back of a cafeteria in a public elementary school on the east side of Portland, holding a paper cup of lukewarm coffee and watching his daughter talk to a panel of judges about how a solar circuit worked. The school tech fair was a small thing, 22 kids, cardboard displays, a folding table against the gym wall holding plates of store-bought cookies. But Emma had practiced her presentation in the bathroom mirror every night for 2 weeks, and she was wearing the dress she only wore for serious occasions. And when she held up her little wired panel and said, in her careful kindergarten voice, "The sun makes the light go," Adrian felt something in his chest that he had not felt since before Hannah died. Not happiness, exactly, something quieter. The feeling of a man who had finally stopped bracing. Nora was standing beside him. She was clapping too hard. She had been clapping too hard for every kid, which was driving the more restrained parents slightly insane, and Adrian loved her for it. "She's crushing it," Nora whispered. "She practiced this in the mirror. She practiced it on me 3 times. She made me ask follow-up questions." "What follow-up questions?" "She made me ask if solar power works at night. She had a whole answer ready. It involves batteries and also, quote, the moon, maybe." He laughed. A woman 2 rows up turned around and gave them a look. Nora did not stop clapping. A lot had changed in 6 weeks, most of it quietly. Nora had not gone back to her apartment. She had gone back once to pack the rest of her things, and had come home to Adrian's place with 2 suitcases and Gerald the cactus, and had not brought up leaving again. Elaine Park had come through on what she'd promised. A friend of a friend had hired Nora on a 6-month contract at a smaller firm, at a pay cut she had accepted with a shrug and a joke about finally not having to pretend she liked the word synergy. The SEC review of Vail Innovations was ongoing and probably would be for years. Gideon Hart had stepped down as CEO. The board had brought in an interim replacement. The company was smaller now, and honest, and limping, and alive. 314 people still had jobs. Adrian thought about that sometimes. He did not feel proud of it. He just felt relieved. Calvin Reed had not contacted either of them again. He had testified, Adrian heard later, cleanly and fully and without deals. Whatever his reasons had been that night on the 47th floor, they had, in the end, added up to the right thing done in the wrong way. Adrian had decided a few weeks in that this was probably true of most people he'd ever known. Hannah had been the exception. Hannah had done the right thing the right way. That was part of what had made her rare. He thought about Hannah less now, and when he did, it was easier. The grief had not gone. It never would. But it had moved somehow from a room he lived in to a room he visited. Emma finished her presentation. The judges clapped. One of them crouched down and asked her a question about the wires, and Emma answered it with the grave precision of a small engineer, and Adrian watched his daughter and thought, this is what I almost didn't let her have. After the fair, they walked home. The 3 of them. Emma between them, holding Adrian's hand on one side and Nora's on the other, swinging. It was the end of March, and the sun had come out for the first time in weeks, and the whole city smelled like wet earth and new leaves. "Daddy," Emma said. "Yeah, baby." "Did I do good?" "You did amazing." "Nora said I was the best one." "Nora is right." Nora cried a little. "I saw?" "Why did she cry?" Adrian looked across Emma's head at Nora. Nora was looking straight ahead, pretending very hard she did not know this conversation was happening. "Because she's proud of you," Adrian said. "Oh." Emma said. Okay. They walked. That evening, after dinner, after Emma was bathed and read to and asleep with the elephant under her arm, Adrian and Nora sat on the small concrete stoop at the back of the building. A porch light flickered above them. A cat was yowling somewhere on the next block. The air was cold and clean and full of the smell of somebody 3 doors down grilling onions. Adrian had a beer, Nora had tea. They didn't talk for a while. Eventually Adrian said, Can I tell you something? Yeah. I spent 4 years thinking love was going to come back to me like a lightning strike, like one big moment. I thought I'd know because it would be huge, something I couldn't miss. And I thought because I couldn't feel anything that big, I wasn't ready, and I might never be ready. Yeah, but it wasn't like that. No, it was a woman in a lobby with 2 coffees. It was somebody teaching my kid how to string beads. It was you asleep on my couch. It wasn't lightning. It was the lamp being left on for me. Nora's eyes shone. She didn't wipe them. She just looked at him. I want to tell you something too, she said. Okay. I didn't know I wanted a kid. I didn't. I had never wanted a kid. I had a plan, Adrian. I had the kind of plan women in their 20s have where they swear they're going to be different, and then I met your daughter, and she asked me if I could do a 4-strand braid, and I couldn't, and I watched you try, and I understood that I had been lying to myself about a lot of things. Nora, I love her. I know. I love you. He set the beer down. He reached over and took her face in both hands, very gently, and kissed her. Not a big movie kiss. A small one. A porch light kiss. The kind a man gives a woman when he is saying, yes, this here. When they pulled back, her cheeks were wet, and she was laughing a little. Finally, she said, I know. 6 weeks, Adrian. 6 weeks. I had to be sure. You're impossible. I know. Behind them, the door cracked open, a small voice. Daddy? They turned. Emma was in her purple pajamas, elephant in hand, hair a nest. Baby, why are you up? I heard you laughing. Sorry. Were you kissing? Adrian opened his mouth to answer. Nora was faster. Yes, Nora said. We were. Emma considered this. Then she walked out onto the stoop in her bare feet and climbed into the small space between them and sat down. Good, she said. She leaned her head against Nora's arm. She leaned her feet against Adrian's leg. The 3 of them sat on the concrete step under the flickering light. Daddy, Emma said. Yeah. Is Nora going to stay? He looked at Nora. Nora looked back. Yeah, baby, he said. Nora's going to stay. Okay. Emma closed her eyes. Adrian sat on the stoop with his daughter against one side and Nora against the other, and he thought about the storm that had dropped him on the 47th floor of a glass tower in the middle of the night, and he thought about the check in the drawer that he had, eventually, mailed back in a plain envelope with no note, and he thought about all the ways a life could turn quietly without announcing itself. How you spent years waiting for a door to open, and then one night somebody called you about a missing file and the door had been open the whole time. You had just been too tired to walk through. He had learned something, he thought. Not a grand thing, a small one. That the people who showed up for you were rarely the ones you expected, and almost never the ones in the best suits. That doing the right thing usually cost more than you thought it would, and paid you back in ways you did not see coming. That grief did not end, but it made room. That a child could teach 2 scared adults how to stand still long enough to begin. And that love, the real kind, the kind that lasted, did not arrive with thunder. It arrived quietly. A porch light. A cup of coffee in a bad hotel lobby. A small hand reaching for yours on the walk home. Emma was asleep against Nora's arm. Nora's hand found Adrian's on the cold concrete between them. He squeezed her fingers. She squeezed back. And the 3 of them, not a finished family, not a polished one, just 3 people who had chosen each other on a Tuesday, sat on the stoop under the flickering light and waited for the cold to drive them inside, which it did, eventually, as it always does. But not yet. Not quite yet.